I am Jimbo Paris, and you are listening to The Jimbo Paris Show. All right, how's it going, everyone? This is Jimbo Paris. Welcome to The Jimbo Paris Show. Today we have Jeevan Matharu, and he's basically a management partner as well as a transformational coach. And again, very impressive guy, very successful guy. What kind of got my attention was that he was both, a transformational coach that had a kind of a holistic approach to kind of teaching people on finances. And additionally, he was a Judo guy. So let's see what he has to say.
Hi, Jimbo. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you.
You too.
So, can you kind of give me a gist of who you are, what you're about, and what your message is?
Yeah, so to sort of touch on what you just mentioned a moment ago, really, Jimbo, I've got my sort of finger in a lot of pies, and I think as a man, I think it's really important to try and have a lot going on in your life. So from a business perspective, I work as a financial advisor, so that's something predominantly for people looking to retire and helping those out with their finances. So that's more my sort of 9 to 5, as it were. Not that I work as a 9 to 5, but it's probably the easiest way to explain it. I also work as a transformational coach. So that's helping people who want to help sort their own life out. So people who maybe lack goals focus, maybe people who want to develop their own skill set, who want to get rid of limiting beliefs and actually develop as a person. In line with that, I actually wrote a book as well. So it's a book called Become a Person of Value that breaks down all of the aspects that helps an individual to become their best self, whether it's time management, setting goals, mastering your own psychology, to self-improvement on a general basis, motivation. So all of that encompassed into one book, and it really works in parallel with the coaching side. Just as an aside from that, actually, is I'm writing a second book as well that should be out later on in the year, and we'll probably come on to talk about that at some point. Outside of work, I enjoy sort of hiking, walking the dog, and as you said, judo. So something I took up at the age of 30. I did do it as a kid for a few years as well, but I got to that age at 30, and obviously with 30 being a pretty big age, I don't know how old you are, Jimbo, but 30 is a pretty big age, and you start to see that life is continuing to move on, and you sit down and think, well, actually, and we'll come on to how important questions are. What do I really want for my life? What sort of hobbies did I enjoy as a kid, and what do I want to pursue? So for me, judo is a great way to have some sort of physical combat, but also make good friends and keep fit. So I started that at age 30. I'm now 32, and I've managed to get myself into a good position. I'm actually in the rankings at the moment, which is good, and obviously want to continue to progress up the rankings. I've got my own goals, and I sort of train 3, 4, 5 times a week. So as with anything, to be the best, the 10,000 hour rule comes to mind. You have to be willing to put in the effort, reflect on what you need to improve on, what's going well, and continue to devote your time and resources to that endeavor. So yeah, I hope that's a good briefing as to who I am. Obviously, if you want to delve deeper, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, definitely. When I first heard you went into judo at 30, that takes a different frame of mind, because at that age, don't get me wrong, it's still young, but getting into a combat sport at that age, it must have been a bit it must be tough for the average person. But it seems like you have a certain type of mindset, and from what I could tell, additionally, you're a very skilled person as well, financial advisor, retirement planner. So you have a wide array of different skills. Where did this mindset come in, this kind of headspace that built this amazing foundation of skills that you have now?
Well, I think with sometimes in life, it's stuff that you don't have that you need to develop. So, a lot of times people, let's say they're not very social, they actually can become very social later on, because they think, well, actually, what do I need to work on? I need to work on becoming more social. And they proactively go about their life in a way to become more social, go to more events, go speak to people, cold approach females if that's their thing. And it helps you to develop on that basis. So for me, I was actually kicked out of school as a kid. I was very smart. I'm actually a member of Mensa, if you're familiar with what Mensa is.
Yeah, Mensa Select, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so Mensa is top 2% of IQ. You take an IQ test, and if you're in the top 2% of IQ, you get in. You generally between a 132 and a 145 to get into Mensa as an IQ range. So I had the intelligence there, but I didn't have the devotion and the focus really to be my best self. So at school, I was predicted A stars and stuff, and I still got good grades, but I didn't have the work ethic and the determination and the focus to actually achieve what I needed to achieve. As I got older, obviously you start to think, well, where could I be and where am I? Where's that discrepancy? Where's that come from? And how can I close that gap? And that's where, as I said, I wrote a book and now sort of work for myself both on the transformational coaching and the wealth management side, because you've got to look at where you want to be and backpedaling and look at what you need to do now. As a man, for me, you need to be able to fight. You need to have your own business. You need to have a good friendship circle. You need to be in good physical shape, etc., etc., etc. And to get those attributes, you need to be doing certain things. So with the judo side, it's difficult to start that at 30, but I did do it, as I said, as a kid from, 7 to 10 or 7 to 11. So there is some sort of extrapolation of that at an older age. It's maybe tapping back into what you learned at that age. I did karate as well, but I don't think karate is as useful as judo, if I'm honest. There's not enough combat. For people listening, there's combat sports and there's martial arts. Combat sports are ones where you pretty much fight every time you go, like jiu-jitsu or judo or boxing. Yeah, they're more combat-based sports. Whereas martial arts, you get your kung fu, your karate, etc. It's more technical based. You see a lot of it's like punching thin air and stuff. And for me, that didn't really help as much as the combat side. It's something I really enjoy. And it actually, for the men out there, two things that improve your testosterone that many people probably aren't doing. One is combat sports. Having a competition against another man increases your testosterone. And also something called no fap, if you're familiar with what that means. Those two things are good to increase your testosterone.
Okay. I think monks and temples practice that regularly, but normal people do that too.
Yeah, I mean, your seed. Let's keep it as straight as possible, if that makes sense. Your seed is a source of power, and every time you've released that seed, let's say, you feel depressed and you feel like that your aggression has gone. It's like with boxers; they're not allowed to fornicate before a fight for a period of time.
I think Mike Tyson used to do something like that.
Yeah, because you have to keep that testosterone. So for people who are addicted to porn or whatever, and they are continually, let's say, pleasuring themselves, they are reducing their testosterone massively. So if you're going to try so with habits, it's generally better to replace a habit than it is to get rid of a habit. So if you're doing one thing, try and replace it with something similar. So if you're watching that sort of material, why not go do a combat sport that gets you some exercise and maybe will make you think less of doing that sort of thing. The problem with people is that they tend to set negative based goals, Jimbo. They will say, well, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this, I don't want to be fat, I don't want to be single, blah blah blah. Why not look at what you do want instead? I want a relationship, I want to be able to fight, I want to be in good shape. Although they mean the same thing, they don't really mean the same thing to your sort of subconscious mind. So it's all about the direction you're heading in and where you're charting your course, essentially. Like for you, if you've got your own podcast, you will have thought to yourself in your head, oh, I want to start a podcast. This is the sort of thing that I want to, the message I want to put across. These are the sort of demographic of people that I want to serve. These are the sort of guests that I want to have on board. And these are the sorts of topics that we want to discuss. You have to have something built in the mind before it appears in reality. The house that you're sitting in now, it was built by an architect and designed by an architect first in the mind. It was built and here you are. So as with anything, business, becoming a boxer or a footballer, you have to have that initial impetus in the mind first. And for those people who think, well, I actually haven't got anything, you have to ask yourself questions. Who do I want to be? What sort of legacy do I want to leave? What skill set do I have? What personality type I am? And what do I enjoy doing with my time? Because if you can marry all of that up, that's where you're going to be most productive.
Okay. So when it came to your life and sort of transforming, what was the first step in transforming your life, and where did you begin?
So as I said, my life wasn't going that badly. I went to university, got a 2-1, get a good paid job, professional, work as an advisor. But it's, as I said, it's not a case of doing well or doing badly. It's a discrepancy as to what your potential is versus where you are. Usain Bolt, let's say he ran 100 meters in 11 seconds. That's pretty quick, but it's not as close to what his optimal 9.7 or whatever it is, 9.6 something. So it's trying to find out where, how to improve or reduce that discrepancy. So I was working at a job and I was starting to understand how important time management is. So I was driving 5-6 hours a day in the car to go to client meetings and stuff. And instead of listening to the same playlist over and over again, the same songs that I know all the words to, or songs that I've just listened to a lot, I thought, well, why can't I use this 6 hours to learn something, develop, I don't know, time management skills, sales skills, mentality skills, etc., etc. And it really developed from there. Listen to people like Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy, Nightingale, etc., etc. And that sort of helped me to trigger my own mind that subsequently has led me here today.
Okay. And when we talk about transformation, what is transformation?
In a general sense or specific to
for what you coach?
So many of the reasons people are where they are is because of their limiting beliefs. So, you have to, rich people are, thieves and, they're lucky and all this sort of stuff. It's trying to reprogram that fundamental mindset before anything can change. So if you believe, I'm never going to be rich, no one loves me, I'm unattractive, I'm unlucky, blah blah blah. What results do you think are going to happen off the back of that? If you feel like, I never succeed at anything I do, and that's a deep subconscious thing. It's not something that you maybe say to yourself in the mirror, I never achieve it. It's something that you might mutter to yourself. Does that make sense? Yeah, she doesn't like me because of I've got a bent nose, or my ears are big, or my chin's funny, or whatever it's going to be. That's your own view of yourself. It's insecurity. So the first thing that we need to transform is our mind, because everything comes from that grey matter. What's the difference between a professional athlete and someone who's not professional, assuming they've got a very similar ability? It's just a mindset. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo is a prime example. Look at the dedication that he's given, and he's not that much technically better than some of the other footballers around. He's just not. But what he has got is discipline to eat the right foods, motivation to be the best. He calls himself the greatest. So I prefer Messi than Ronaldo, but Ronaldo's a better example for this purpose. He says, look, this is the goal I want. I want to be the best. So if you want to be the best, how does the best behave? Do they go out drinking every night? Probably not. Do they stay extra for practice? Yeah, probably. Do they work on one kick 1,000 times, or do they work on 1,000 kicks once, as the Bruce Lee phrase goes? Probably 1,000 times on the same sort of kick. So a daily routine or a daily habit is going to bring results over the long term. So one of the things that people get wrong is they get overwhelmed by a large task. So if I was to say, look, I'm going to write a book this year, that sounds like a pretty big task, doesn't it? If you think of it on the face of it, a book in a year, it just seems very overwhelming. What if we broke that down into a daily goal or a daily segment? With a pizza, you don't eat the whole pizza at once. You don't, roll it up and stuff in your mouth. I mean, some people might do, but yeah, they're probably not going to be on the healthier side. Let's say. So if we broke down that major goal into a goal that said, if we just write 1 page a day, which not that difficult. How many emails do you write a day if you're working 9 to 5? Probably a lot. 1 page a day. By the end of the year, you've got 356 pages. 365 pages, even 365 pages. That's enough to run a book. And let's for argument's sake say there's not 365 pages. There's 300 pages. You've then got a few months to do all the editing, the printing, do the cover, proofread it, give it to one of your friends or family to read, and by that year end, the goal is done. Same with the judo thing. You said, like, I've got goals of where I want to be, or with the books and the coaching stuff. You have to reverse engineer it. To be in that top 5 or 6 in the country, you need to be training 4, 5, 6 times a week. You need to do your conditioning stuff. You need to work on the strategy side. So it's a chess game, like boxing. These sports, they're not a street fight. They are fighting within a parameter of rules that require strategy to win. So Mayweather for me is the best boxer at strategy. He's got the Philly roll, and he can hit and not get hit. That is the ultimate. I mean, he might not be the best street fighter. If someone say, oh well, if I'd have been a street fight, fair enough. But this is within that sport. It's called a sport for a reason. It's not a brawl in a bar. So judo is very much like that. It's there's a parameter, and it's how well you fight within that parameter. And yeah, so you have to have all of those things built in together to be successful. And success is just as Erwin Nightingale said, a worthy ideal that you're working towards. If your worthy ideal is to be a mother to a nice family, and you're working towards that, that's great. You're a success. For someone else, success might be earning $1 billion business. But again, you've got to create your own ambition and dream big. That's what I think.
Okay. And you also do a lot of counseling as well, right? So this is a very good perspective that you have, but how do you teach people this?
So the word counselling really forms part of that coaching side. So just to sort of explain the difference between sort of counselling and a coaching-based approach. So a counsellor is typically for someone who has had past trauma. So, they've been abused, or they've been subject to substance abuse in the past. So it's trying to understand why that happened and what happened in the past that caused you to take those actions and look at why you're here today. Coaching, on the other hand, is to say, well, where are you now? Where do you want to be, and how do we deliver and get you there? So as far as counselling goes, counselling is, we do need to understand why you are where you are. But what's more important than that is how we proceed forward. Because, we can look at the past, but the past isn't going to change now, is it? The future is what we can change. And that's really where all of that fits together, if that answers your question.
Okay. And you say you have, a holistic approach to things like financial planning. How does that all begin? And this is just for me, this is a bit of a basic question.
Yeah.
But what is financial planning?
So finance in general is a very broad area, isn't it? You've got accountants, you've got, legal finance guys, you've got tax accountants, you've got financial advisors, you've got stockbrokers, the list goes on. So I'm in the financial advisory space specifically in retirement planning. So it's people who are 55, 60, 65 years of age who want to use their pensions in the best way possible to provide them with income long term. That's it in a nutshell, really. So we look at, how it should be invested, what's your risk category, what other income and expenditure you've got coming in. Do you want to leave assets to your kids? Are you single, married, divorced, good health, poor health? And we sort of build a strategy off the back of that. So that's how the sort of finance side works. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Just coming back to your previous question, because I think there is something to add there as well in terms of what your question was. How do I help people, whether it's with the wealth management side or the coaching side? It's about asking the right questions. So if you go to a car salesman and he says, "Oh, this is the car you should take. You should take this, I don't know, BMW X5. This is the car you should have." Well, how do you know what car they want? It's like, the what's that film? Wolf of Wall Street. Do you know when he says, "Sell me this pen"?
Yeah.
The whole reason he said, "Sell me this pen," is he doesn't want you to say, "Oh, it's a blue pen, it's great, it's fantastic." You need to build a rapport and you need to understand what the other person's after. So with a car, as we said, if you want something that's great fuel economy, that's small around town, that is two-door, that has got, let's say power steering, cheap tires, an X5 is probably not going to be right for you. On the other hand, if you've got two big dogs, you drive off road, and your budget is X, you want a German car, then the X5 might be right for you. So what we need to establish is, what does the other person want, and can we deliver that? So with the coaching side, it's, well, what do you want? Okay, X, Y, and Z. Well, what are you doing at the moment that's going to get you there? Well, this is actually pushing me further in this direction. I want to go this direction. Well, is that down to a mental block? Have you got the right habits? Et cetera, et cetera. So it's to help people navigate through. And actually, people have got their own answers inside. Like, if I say to you, "Look, you should go and live in New York or wherever," you'd be like, "Well, I don't want to live in New York." I'm not here to tell you what to do. It's trying to help you to understand what you actually want yourself. Because you might say, "Well, we'll break it down. We'll say, okay, well, what weather do you want? Do you want to be near family or far away from family? What sort of budget do you have? Do you want to be working remotely, or do you want a job local to that place, etc.?" And then you'll build and say, "Well, these are the sorts of places that might work for you, or these are the sorts of industries that might work. These are the sorts of jobs you should be looking at doing. This is your personality type based on the Myers-Briggs. How can it all fit together?" Because not everyone's made equal. If you, as a kid, were very good with music, you could play the guitar, the piano, violin, whatever, and you enjoy doing it, that's probably the avenue for you to go, rather than working a 9 to 5 in a call center. Yeah, that's probably not your calling. For other people, if they're extrovert and they're very good at speaking, maybe sales is right for them, or a podcast. If someone's introverted and loves to be doing research, are they in and they're doing sales currently, that's probably not the right job for them, which is probably why they hate and resent work. Monday mornings are actually the number one time for heart attacks, because people get up and they're stressed and they don't want to go to work. Because you may be a fish trying to climb a tree, or a bird trying to swim underwater. There's a disparity there. And for me, that's why I went down the coaching route as well. It fits my personality type and what I want to do, and that's to help people to improve their lives, whether that's the wealth management side and retire and enjoy themselves, or whether it's the coaching side and actually fulfill their potential. Because I know I did this with myself. I wasn't fulfilling my potential massively. I always got the same feedback. You're really smart, but you're not quite fulfilling your potential. And that's why I've tried to make it a focus. Because look, there's no point in chasing stuff. Jim Rohn said that frustration is trying to find an above average job with above average pay without being an above average person. That's what everyone's looking for. They want a 100 grand job, but they don't want to be a 100 grand person. They don't want to have the skill set. So this is what I started to realise, that actually to get the ideal wife and family and car and house, you need to work on the value that you bring. It's what the first book's about, becoming that person of value, because you attract based on your value rather than to chase for the income, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and speaking of value, in 2021, you were one of the top financial advisors in the Times newspaper. So what I find interesting is that was almost like a year before we had this whole COVID-19 pandemic. So did some of the incidents during COVID-19 maybe help you, or was this sort of a newer challenge that helped you to make that milestone?
Well, the actual top advisor is based on reviews, so it's based on actually clients, and that's the best way, because there's no, it's all well and good saying, "Oh, Asda's the best Walmart or Asda or whatever is the best supermarket, or Sainsbury's or Tesco or any of the other big ones." But what's that based on? Is that based on the people that actually shop there, or is that based on, Which or some of these big organisations? And actually, the best thing is to get feedback from consumers. And it was, part of it was pre-pandemic to an extent, because actually the pandemic is almost 2 years ago now. Well, not quite 2 years, but it's quite a long time ago. So there's a bit of an overlap, because if it's 2021, it will be part 20 and part 2021, if that makes sense. So as with anything, it won't be that on January the 1st of that year, it will be for the previous year. There's generally a period of time, isn't there? And with the tax years here in the UK, it's April to April. But yeah, I think for me, I like to be in the top few percent in anything I do, if I can. It's not always possible. This is a really good point. There's strengths you have and there's weaknesses you have. So if you're shocking at maths, you probably don't want to be doing anything with maths. But there's also what I would deem areas of improvement. So they are weaknesses, but they are weaknesses that relate to what your primary objective is. So again, let's use the example of a sportsman. Let's say you're a tennis player. You've got a great forehand, but you've got a terrible backhand. That is a related weakness, or, well, I don't like the word weakness, areas of improvement. That's an area to improve for you. So you should spend time on areas of improvement related to your overall goal, but not areas that are not related to your goal. So for that professional tennis player to be doing maths because he's not good at it, it's just irrelevant. It's just the most stupid thing you could ever think to do with your time. But a related weakness is completely different. So I just want to clarify that, because many people have heard work on your weaknesses. Well, it depends on what that weakness is in relation to your overall picture, which many people don't really think about.
All right. Well, yeah. That's true as well. And additionally, I'm just gonna run through the rest because you've done so much here. Your IQ is, you said you love being in the top percent, so your IQ is in the top 2%. That must have, did that do anything to you mentally? Did that give you a bit of more confidence, or does it give people confidence? Do you even care?
Well, there's two things. One is that there's not a direct correlation between IQ and success. Any of the most successful people aren't smart. They're just very good at what they do. IQ is just your processing power generally, and your ability to understand and comprehend information. So if I don't know what laptop you've got there, but you get your i3, i4, i5, i7 processor. Obviously, the higher IQ, the faster the processing speed. Fine. But it doesn't reflect that. As I said, at school, I was doing exams years before I was meant to, but I couldn't apply myself. I had the ability, but there's no application. If you've got a Bugatti Veyron, but there's no tires on the car, you can't put the power down and actually move forward. So you're better off having a Honda Accord with tires that can actually move at a steady pace. It's like the hare and the tortoise story, isn't it? The hare is running around and he ends up having to sleep while the tortoise is just plodding along. So yeah, I mean, IQ is good to have, of course, as with anything, but it's not a direct correlation to success. it just opens sometimes more doors for maybe the higher paying roles. That being said, when you're doing a job, you're essentially working for someone. So if you're working for yourself, your IQ doesn't matter per se, does it? Because you could start a business, plumber or painter or whatever, and then have people working for you, and you just run the show. As with any large institution, the CEO doesn't run everything anymore. He brings in super smart people to run it, and he's making most of the money. So it's not a direct correlation. There's also the social and hierarchical demands or parts of the game that don't factor in with IQ. Socially, how well do you get on with people? What's your network like? Are you likable? Looks matter as well. There was a psychological study done on the sentences given to people based on their looks, and the more attractive people, both male and female, got lesser sentences. So everything matters. So that's why, as I said with the book, physicality is actually the first chapter, because without, there's no point in having a great mentality if you are not in a good place fitness wise, because people do judge books by their cover naturally. And if you've heard about the mind body connection, unless your body's in a good place, your mind's not going to be in a good place. So that's, as I said, the first book's just like a go-to manual for how to bring everything together. The second book, and I'm quite excited about this one, that should be out by the end of the year, is about questions you should ask yourself. So a question a day. So first day might be, well, where do you want to be in 5 years' time? You write down where you want to be in 5 years' time. Then there's some additional points. I put some input into, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And then there's a second page as well to write down a more in detailed answer. And then day 2 will be a different question, day 3, day 4, etc. One of the questions might be, what personality type are you? And we'll list them out. And, what jobs are good, what jobs are bad for you. Because by the end of the year, you should have a much better understanding of your own self. And it might give you even one gem to change the trajectory of your life, So, and the good thing is I'm not telling you, I'm guiding to an extent, but you're going to write down your own thing. What's my ideal life? Well, I want to live in sunny country, let's say, with family, etc., etc. For someone else, it might be, I want the Dan Bazarian lifestyle. I want to be gambling, 20 women, live fast, die young. Fine. If that's what they want, great. But how do they go about getting there? Because there's not, this is the best way to live. It's a case of, where are you? Where do you need to be? And how do we get there? So this book's going to be very interactive. You'll get your own copy. You can write in it, and then you can review back. You can look at, 12 months later, you go back, oh, where do I want to be in 5 years? Oh yeah, I'm part way there. Or things have changed. I'm going to suggest doing it in pencil anyway, when the book comes out, so that people can maybe, not reuse it, but maybe adjust stuff and say, well, actually, that's changed, and use it as a guide. Because look, if you haven't got a sat nav on or a destination, you end up, just moving around, taking any job that comes up just because it's available and you're available. You want to be the main actor in your own life, don't you? You don't want a side part in someone else's life. You want to be your own main protagonist, and that's what many people don't get. Everyone can be their best self. Doesn't mean that you're going to be the best person in the world necessarily, but the best version of yourself, is likely to give you the best results.
I completely agree with that, because I find in today's society, people really need to just focus on comparing where they were before to where they are now. People just get too caught up comparing themselves with other people's success. So I'm glad that you kind of preach that as well.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Peterson says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday rather than who someone else is today. Absolutely true. I think one of the reasons that is a massive case today is social media. The Instagram, the Facebook, this guy's in, in the States or Dubai or Europe somewhere, and he's, popping bottles and all that sort of stuff. And people, envy's a massive thing. something that probably we won't go into today, but there's something to research. In the 7 deadly sins, so lust, gluttony, envy, wrath, etc., etc. Most people have got all of those, an app for all of those on their phone. So Deliveroo is gluttony, Tinder is lust, LinkedIn is greed because you're looking for the best job. Sloth is Netflix. I can't remember what else the other one that I was going to say, but essentially, people have. Instagram is the envy one. Or no, I think Instagram's pride and Facebook was envy. But you've got all those 7 deadly sins on the phone, and most people are on all those 7 apps all the time, and then they wonder why they don't feel great inside. Is because they are being subject to those, bad things essentially. So definitely, social media's had a big impact on the quality of males and females across the board, and it's not been a good thing to be perfectly honest. I mean, people just walk down with their hands on the phone or head down, not noticing what's going on. And actually, look, a phone can be a very good tool in the right hand. You can be I'm not saying I'm necessarily the best hand, but I will try and learn stuff on my phone while I'm walking the dog or going places. Everyone does go on the old Facebook feed and Instagram time to time, but some people are literally on that all day, and that's not good. It's putting you in a bad mind frame, and 2, you're not learning it. You're not getting any better, and if you're not getting better, you're getting worse by design. So yeah, I think get some of those apps off your phone, definitely, and start living a more honest life.
Yeah. Agreed. But if you're running a business on Instagram or Facebook, just only use those things. Don't use anything.
Well, exactly. As I said, depends on whose hand the phone's in. Facebook can be one thing to one person, and it could be something completely different to another person. But yeah, it's just how you're using things that's important. Alcohol. If you're having 1 drink a week for a social, fine. If you're drinking 17 pints a night and getting up late for work every day, that's probably not a good thing. But so overconsumption. But we do live in a gluttonous environment at present. With the old Just Eat and Deliveroo, and food coming to your door, massive portions, and all that sort of stuff. So it's not good. But yeah, soda, as you call it, or fizzy drinks, first thing to get rid of. Bad for your health, bad for your teeth, bad for your mind. Even the diet ones have got aspartame in, which is made from the byproducts of genetically modified E. coli, if you didn't know.
Oh, wow.
So, but basically, the waste product of bacteria. So yeah, if you had a car and you had a petrol car, would you put diesel in it?
Okay. I don't have a petrol car.
So if you had a petrol car, you wouldn't put diesel in it, would you? Or the other way around? Because the car would break down. Same with people's body.
Yeah.
People's body break down because they're consuming the wrong foods for that body.
Oh.
And the same
quite a bit.
Sorry?
You know quite a bit.
Well, I like to read. I would say I'm probably as I've got older, I'm more introverted than I was prior. When I was young, I was quite loud and stuff, but learning stuff's so important. Because if you don't know something, how can you make a solid judgment? Like a lot of the time, we learn from previous experience, other people's experience. So if you're a kid and your mum and dad weren't around, and you saw a flame, like a fire, you'd put your hand in it, wouldn't you, to see what it is, and you'd burn it and go, "Oh, I'm not doing that again." But your mum already tells you, "Look, if you put your hand in there, you're going to burn it." And people are there to help you through, so you can learn stuff from people in history. The Stoics for me are massive. Plato, Aristotle, Aurelius, Socrates. They've got some really, really interesting points. And a lot of the inspiration for the second book has come from them, if I'm honest, and part of the first as well. But they were people who were proper men, really, you know. So they wanted to be their best self, you know. They wanted to develop an empire and ask deep questions, because what else is there? You know, you don't want to be on your deathbed saying, "I wish I'd done this, wish I'd done this," etc. You know, I don't know who said this phrase, but you don't want to die and not having seen what your body can look like. Imagine
I
being
remember that. Yeah.
and never seeing how good your body can be. Same with anything, you know. A tree will grow as tall as it can. When you plant it, it will grow based on the environment it's in. Of course, it will grow as tall as it can. Humans don't do that. We smoke, we drink, we eat shit, for want of a better phrase. We procrastinate. We do bad habits versus good bad habits versus good habits. Imagine if you, and it's impossible to do this 100%, but let's just be idealistic here. Imagine if everything you do was improving your life. So exercise versus smoking, you know, making business contacts rather than just going out on a social, investing rather than gambling, etc., etc. The discrepancy is massive, and it's impossible to do it 100%. You know, even as a coach, you know, no one's going to pretend that they are, you know, have the perfect life. That's just bullshit. In all fairness, yeah, even I watch Netflix, I have a beer. You know, I have days off where I'm like, you know what, I do need a rest. At the moment, I hurt my elbow, so I went training yesterday, but I didn't train properly. I just did what I could with. I've seen the physio today, so we've got an assessment of what it is, but because I've got competition in a few weeks. But again, you've got to keep assessing where you are. You know, if I've got this competition, I need to assess my progress for that event. People don't assess progress for anything. They just want to go into work, do the minimum, get paid the most, and that's it. And maybe that's not your personality trait. Maybe that's because you're a fish being judged as a bird, as we've said, or whichever way you want to put it. Because you're doing a job that you absolutely hate and you've got no passion for. But I'm sure you go home and, I don't know, knit or sew, or you draw, you paint, you record music. That's what you should be doing more with your time. And obviously there's two ways to do it. One is to run something parallel. So you've got your job, but you come home and you do your side hustle, as it were. Or you jump ship, you burn the boats, and you go for it. That's it. There's only two ways. You know, there's burn the bridges and there's burn the boats. The burn the boat story is where they wanted to take the island. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Jimbo, or not, but they wanted to just basically invade the island. And the commander said, look, burn your boats, because then we're going to have even more desire to take the island. If we've got a retreat, then, you know, you've always got a way out. So you've got to put all the cards on the table sometimes and go for it. So yeah. You know, I mean, I quit my job to start the businesses, and sometimes, you know, you have to do that, because at the end of the day, let's say you fail, it's the first attempt in learning. That's what fail means. But are you not going to be in a better place afterwards, even if, let's say, financially didn't go well? You've learned something, you've developed, you've you know, you've actually become bolder, and you can always go back to the job you had previously, whether it's at the same business or not. That's irrelevant. You can get the same job because you've got that experience, but you've now developed as a person. You've expanded. You've got on your comfort zone. People don't want to get out of the comfort zone. If you were still in your comfort zone, you'd be being breastfed still by your mum, because that's, you know, you need to continue to develop and say, oh, this week, what do I need to do? What do I need to learn? I mean, I get into these ruts as well. You know, you'll get into a routine where everything just gets very not boring, but it comes samey. You need to, and you think, oh, the reason you get that is because you're saying, look, I need something exciting and different. That's why holidays are so great, because you get out your comfort zone. It's not just because you're going to enjoy yourself, it's because it's a completely different environment. You're not thinking about some of the same things. You're meeting new people. But we need those in just our day-to-day sometimes. Instead of watching the same program, why not read a book instead? Or if you're reading all the time, actually put a film on, just something different. Because we inherently need that as human beings. We need new experiences. We need to learn new things. Like, I'm funny like that. I'll tend to research a topic, or even food. Right, I cook like 3-4 times a day. Well, not 3-4 times, but because I've just toast and stuff in the morning, but I cook 3 times a day, pasta maybe for lunch, and have 2 dinners. And so I'll go through stages where for the whole week I'll cook the same 4 meals for those days, 3 meals for those days. I'm like, I'm getting bored. So then I'll do another 3 meals and I'll stick to that for a week. Sometimes you end up doing rinse repeat for a bit, and sometimes you just need a bit of variety. Sometimes it's good to do rinse repeat because it keeps things easy to manage, or easier to manage because you've got the ingredients, and we'll stick with food for a minute. But sometimes you just need to be spontaneous and say, look, we're going out to eat tonight or whatever. We're going to go to the pub, and a different pub than what we normally go to. Might have a different conversation. Might meet someone new. Might end up playing a pool against some new guys and making friends that way. When life gets too repetitive, it gets boring, and then you lose motivation for stuff.
Excellent. And I think you mentioned something quite interesting before about burning partially going into something versus burning the boats, as you would say previously. I understand, like, as a coach, you may give people advice on what to do in their life. When's the right time to burn the boats versus partially go into something?
Well, I don't think, you said I'd give advice. We would discuss it. It wouldn't be like I'd say, look, you should just go. Well, you have to ask them, what do you feel is the right thing to do? What does your gut say? What financial obligations have you still got? Because obviously if you jump ship and you've got a mortgage, 4 kids, a wife, 2 cars, a dog, and you've got no savings. Yes, I think that when you jump ship and you commit 100%, it's more likely to work. That's proven throughout history. However, sometimes you don't want to cut your nose off to spite your face. So it might be a question of, well, do you partially do it? Do you cut your hours down and give a little bit more time to start your business? Do you just work really, really hard for 12 months and you run both, and you say to your wife, look, you're going to have to pick up some of these other stuff because I'm not going to have capacity to do that and take the kids here and do this and do that. 12 months, I need to work hard. And that's just the sort of thing we'll discuss, because logistically that might not work, because the wife might be someone who works as well. And logistically that wouldn't work. So then that's a cross, and we need to explore other options. There's always contingencies. Like, I don't know if you've seen Prison Break, the series.
Okay.
Have you seen Prison Break? Jimbo.
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
So have you seen Prison Break, the series?
Prison Break.
It's probably like 10, 15-year-old series, basically. Michael Scofield and Lincoln Burrows. It's a good watch. I'd recommend it. But the main actor is a really good character. He's got a really sensational mind, and he thinks of all contingencies. And that's where I've basically going in this. If you've got the capacity to, you need to be able to understand all contingencies, like chess, for example. If you move your piece here, what impact does this have on all of the rest of the board? What's that piece going to do next? How's that affecting? What weaknesses have I got? What would happen if this person moved here and I didn't move here? And there's so many different scenarios. Sometimes people don't think of that in their own life. You can go overboard, of course, and overthink things, but there's a fine line, isn't there, between overthinking and not thinking enough.
Okay. And so that prison analogy was more so about the idea that there could potentially be different. You need to analyze the situation very well. And that's what you're really trying to emphasize. Okay.
Yeah. So your question was, well, how, whether you tell someone what to do, and if they were going to jump ship or they were going to do a 50-50 approach, we'd go through those options and say, well, if you did this, what is the likely outcomes going to be?
Oh, okay.
So so let's say you did the 1 year thing where you're working a full-time job and your side hustle, and I said that maybe you could look at your wife taking up some of the errands, but she works full-time as well, then that's not going to work. If your wife doesn't work, then that may work, because she would just have to increase her output, which gives you the time to do that. If your wife did work, then it might be, well, why not get her to do it a few extra hours? You do less hours on your job, and then you can start this business.
Mhm.
So that's how you have to explore the options, don't you? So let's use you an example, Jimbo. You've got your podcast. You've probably got your own goals, haven't you? That where you want to be in 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. The questions you'd ask is, well, how could I grow my followers from X to Y? You'd be able to write down some ways. What sort of demographic am I after with listeners? Is it in line with the demographic that I've currently got? If not, how can we change that? What guest could I bring on that would bring a large number of followers? What topics do I want to continue with, and other ones that I want to drop from the podcast? What length of podcasts do I want to continue to do? Hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, half an hour? How can I market it differently? So these are just questions that I'm just firing off the top of my head. But there's so many questions that when you think of them, you think, I've not thought of that before. And then your mind starts to think of the answer for it. A great time to ask yourself a question is before you go to bed. Think, that episode. Oh, how could I do something similar to that again? Oh, great. Or how could I get this guest on again, but with a different tangent? Okay, great. How could I grow my business tenfold over the next 3 years? Obviously, it would generally be exponential, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be, 1 time, 2 times. It will generally be an exponential curve. And then sometimes you'll get up in the morning and you'll have an answer, or it might take a week. Like you've had this, I'm sure, in your own life, Jimbo, when you get an idea pop into your head and you're like, that's it. But your subconscious is working in the background constantly to achieve answers. And that's where we talked earlier about the negative-based programming versus positive-based. Many people say, I don't want to be poor. Your mind hears poor. Your mind hears poor. That's what it hears. And if you're always the person who tries to take the cheaper option, over the course of your life, you'll end up being a cheap person because your conscious believes you to take the cheaper option always. Like Donald Trump said that one of his colleagues always used to fly first class, even though he couldn't afford it, because he was in the mindset, I'm a first class kind of guy. And that transpired to bring him great success. Now, I'm not saying that should always be done. Obviously, if you've got nothing to your name, you don't fly first class. But you have to have a self-image. Like this could be a whole hour talking about self-image and stuff. But what is your self-image? Do you believe yourself as like a royalty who's top 1%, top 2%, king, fighter, whatever, conqueror? Or do you see yourself as like a side part? Oh yeah, I'm just a guy who, likes to play on Call of Duty and, go to the pub with my friends and live at home forever. Yeah. If you've got that view, what do you think is going to happen? Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that just because you've got the view of let's say I want to be a professional football player. No, let's scratch that. Let's say I want to be the fastest man on the planet, 100 meters. You have to have the ambition, but you also can't have delusion. You have to have the physical attributes in that example to do that. I could train every day for the next 20 years. I will never be as fast as Usain Bolt because he was blessed with those attributes that allow him to run fast. But he found that, and as we said earlier, he fulfilled his potential in that particular area. You need to find what your area is, and that's half the battle with life. Like for me, I feel like this coaching thing is what I was here for. At school, I was getting like 100% in psychology, my AS levels, and no revision. I just like that sort of stuff, and coaching is similar to that. And I also like helping people, and I'm better on an intimate one-to-one than in group settings. So I had to do a lot of self-reflection to say, what type of personality type are you? What would you like to? What impact do you want to leave? What sort of topics do you research anyway? What do you like learning about? And then you can build that into your day-to-day, and move forward with that. But coming back to one of your audio comments as well, was that how do you know it's the right time? The right time is now. What you don't want to do is to wait too late Not that it means that you can't achieve anything. Like Colonel Sanders started KFC at 65, and now it sells the most chicken in the world. But when you're younger, you have less commitments. You might still live at home or rent with flatmates or whatever. You can probably take more of a risk, and you've got chance to actually make the money back. It's like, put it this way, later on with more commitments as well. Let's say you've got £100 on your bank account and it drops down 20%. How much money have you got now? £80, yeah? To get back up to 100, you need to make 25%. Because 25% of 80 is 20 to take you back up to the 100. So you need to work harder. If you give yourself longer because you tried it earlier when you had less commitments, generally you can afford to make more mistakes. And mistakes are a good thing. You should seek out failure. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. Because I could not fail. I could just walk to the shop and back. I'm like, yeah, success. But I'm not developing anything. If I go to Mount Everest and let's say I didn't summit, at least I'm challenging myself for something and I've learned something, and I might not go again and succeed next time. Most people, well, not everyone who goes to Everest first time would summit, because it depends on the weather, it depends on the team, it depends on you, obviously, as a person. Like, I'm going on a hike tomorrow, actually. That's why I said that, in Lake District in the UK. Not that it's going to be anything like Everest, of course, but you've got to put yourself outside your comfort zone, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it's going to be. It's the only way to develop. A lot of people want to be courageous. Well, let's put it this way: everyone wants to be courageous, disciplined, focused, funny, etc. But let's just put it this way: to be courageous, you have to put yourself in fearful situations. Courage does not mean that you don't get scared by anything. Courage means that you're scared, but you continue to do it anyway. To be fearless is to not have fear. Courageous is actually having fear and moving forward. So to be courageous by design, you have to put yourself in fearful situations. Does that make sense? To develop courage, otherwise you're not courageous. So people want the courage, but they don't want to put themselves into shitty situations. Like, talking about the judo thing, I entered the competition for the ranking events when I was well before when I should be. But I had the courage, well, I'm not scared of just a normal, Tom, Dick or Harry, just because they have got this, black belt and this name doesn't mean nothing to me. I wasn't scared. Well, let's come back to that. You're not scared, but you've got some inherent fear there that you have to say, look, I've got to stand up, and that's where the courage comes from. So you have to do that. You have to be fearful in some respects. If you are fearful that you are going to quit your job and start something, sometimes that means that you're doing the right thing. Because as the Stoics said, the obstacle is the way sometimes. If there is an obstacle in the way, that means that is the way to go. It's not a case of moving from the obstacle and meandering around. Go the way of the obstacle, develop the skill set to overcome that obstacle. And then obviously beyond that, you'll develop many skill sets over the years and become the person that you evidently want to become anyway. So yeah.
Well, you have given a load of gems in this episode.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me on. I think that you've asked some really good questions, and the conversations flowed well. And as you said, sometimes it's just a case of brain dumping. I say something, I'm like, this is relevant as well, because I want to try and give as much information to obviously yourself and your listeners as possible. And I think the more you can give, the better. Even if I help one person, 2 people, 3 people from this podcast, they can maybe help 1, 2, 3 people. They can maybe help 1, 2, 3 people, and that's how you make a major change.
All right. Well, are there any that was a great statement there, but are there any final kind of words you would like to say to the audience?
So if anyone wants to sort of reach out and I'll have some coaching or read any of the books, I'm sure you'll provide that as well, Jimbo. But Vanquish Transformational Coaching is the coaching side, and we can have a just initial free chat. There's no issues there. The books wise, Become a Person of Value is the book that's out on sale at the moment on Amazon, and the second book is yet to be named, but it will be a question a day, and as I said, it will be interactive, so you can maybe do some of your own coaching, if that makes sense, with some of those questions. So yeah, that's what I would say. Obviously, get in touch, and we can help to improve your life moving forward.
All right. Thanks, Jeevan. All right. So this is the Jimbo Paris show. We're just going to kind of end it off here. First of all, Six Figure University. These are a group of women here teaching you how to make six figures. One got into real estate. The other owns a salon. They came together and now they're teaching you how to kind of make your own real estate business and make some money and get some six figures. And then our next person is our LifeWork Systems affiliate. She is the sort of HR superstar. She owns a business that helps improve the HR infrastructure in your business, which can allow it to hit its goals much more easily. Reach out to us. We're a collaborative partner. And again, we have a YouTube channel. Subscribe to us. Check out our show. This is going to be on our YouTube channel. And additionally, we've got a Roku channel. Check us out there on Roku as well. This will be on Roku as well as our other plethora of episodes too. Okay, I'm Jimbo Paris. This is the Jimbo Paris Show. Thank you for listening to the Jimbo Paris Show.